Bills Mafia. On today's Air Raid Hour pregame, we will be breaking down what we expect to see from the Bills today as they take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Injury updates, key matchups, our pregame superlatives are all coming up. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour presented by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on X at the Bills Guys. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on X at Tilt Money, and already got some people in the chat here. Sweet Spike coming in saying, let's go. Way to get the comment section rolling, Sweet Spike. Appreciate it. And Rebellin MDL coming in saying, James Cook going ham today. And yeah, I think we're going to be having a lot of conversations about probably maybe the second best running back in the league currently, behind only Taylor from the Colts. I don't know why I'm blanking on his first name, but Taylor from the Colts. Jonathan Taylor. I wanted to say James Taylor. Jonathan Taylor from the Colts. So a lot of talking points today, Dave. So let's get right into it. To me, the lead story here this afternoon is, it seems like every year, because this is what, the 10th iteration of Allen versus Mahomes since they have both come into the league.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And every year the question is, does this game really matter? And in some cases, I kind of roll my eyes at that, because it always seems like the Bills, who have won the last 4 straight regular season games against the Chiefs, we start puffing our chest after the game. We feel so good, but then we always lose to the Chiefs in January. They have won the last 4 playoff games they have played against us. So in that sense, I kind of always roll my eyes like, this game doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. But this is also one of the first times in the iterations of this matchup in the regular season that neither of these teams are in the driver's seat of the division. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, you're looking to win this game because you got to keep step with the Patriots, who, if you look at their schedule, is not a very strong schedule, and they are clearly in the driver's seat to win the AFC East right now, I think. And then you look at the Chiefs, who are in a 3-team power struggle in the AFC West over there. Every team in that division is relevant outside the Raiders, so it's going to get interesting. I personally I'm one of those people like this game. This is going to be the least stressed I've ever been watching a Bills Chiefs game, because in my mind, I've already subconsciously told myself, if we lose this regular season game, that's just karma and the script writers flipping the script, and we're going to win the game in January. So I've already subconsciously told myself the story in my head. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So for me, I think the game matters, but I don't think it matters in the context of like what it means for Bills Chiefs, like down the road. So, and what I mean by that is it matters in the context of playoff positioning for this team right now, because as it stands right now, like you said, the Bills are not in first place in the AFC East. They're 5-2, sitting in second place in the AFC East. They're currently in the 5 spot in the playoffs. And I know like we're pretty much we're basically getting to the halfway point of the season now, but you have the Patriots are playing the Falcons today. They're currently in the 2 seed. The Broncos and Texans, that's a big matchup today. The Broncos currently in that 3 seed leading the AFC West, with the Texans right there in the 9, like kind of trying to make a move. And then you have the Chargers, who are right behind the Bills in that 6 seed. They're playing the Titans today, so you'd expect that to be a win for the Chargers. And then you have the Chiefs. They are sitting in the 7 spot right now. So right now you have the Bills in the 5 spot, the Chiefs in the 7 spot. The loser of this game may see themselves on the outside looking in, potentially, maybe not after this week, but it depending on how the rest of these games fall, like the team that loses this game could be fighting somewhat of an uphill battle to try to get themselves back into the playoff mix. So for me, the game is less about Bills Chiefs from what that means down the road in January if these teams should meet again, as much as it is more about the wins that you need to stack to try to make the playoffs and hopefully keep pace with the New England Patriots in the division.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, because there are so many people in the comment section on X whenever I was having the conversation this week, and they're just like, and even national pundits, they're like, the Bills need the 1 seed, or not the Bills need the 1 seed, but the Bills need home field advantage when they're playing the Chiefs, or it's over, blah, blah. We had home field advantage 2 years ago, and it didn't really do all that much for us. We lost the game. The closest we've ever been to beating the Chiefs was in their stadium when Josh Allen walked off the field with 13 seconds and the lead. So to me,
in fact, you could argue the Bills have played better in Arrowhead than they've played at home against this team. You could make the case for that.
So to me, obviously, I think the earliest iteration of the Bills, maybe Josh Allen wasn't quite ready, but the Bills still got to the AFC Championship game that first time around. I don't really count that game because like the Bills they weren't ready for prime time like the team has been ready the past couple of seasons. So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. The second really major talking point that I think is interesting is the style clash in this football game, because the Chiefs are very fast tempo. They are space and pace. They are, speed to throw. They're a quick strike. They're a rhythm team. That's what Andy Reid and this team is. Whereas the Bills, you see them now, they are much more ball control. They go to these heavier sets. They have these long drives, heavy on the run game. They go to a very methodical pace, the Buffalo Bills do. So whichever team today, I think, dictates the tempo of this game is going to win this football game. If you're the Bills, you probably want this game to be a 7, 8, 9 possession game. Mm-hmm. If you're the Chiefs, you probably want this to be a game where both teams get 11, 12, 13 possessions. So to me, the style clash between these two teams is going to be an interesting thing to watch today.
The style clash is going to be interesting, and I think the Bills find themselves in a weird spot coming into this game where the passing offense really hasn't been clicking, but that running game has been incredible, as we saw James Cook go for over 200 last week against the Panthers, a good run defense going into that game. And we're going to get into the matchups here, but like it's one of those situations where you don't really feel, at least I don't feel super confident if the Bills get down that you necessarily want to be in a shootout with the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Obviously, Josh Allen equalizes a lot, but it can't all be him, right? Josh Palmer's out. Your main weapons are Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid in the passing game. Haven't gotten what we had hoped to get out of Keon Coleman. A lot of back and forth between like film analysts on Keon Coleman's play here online. If you watch some of those conversations happening between Eric and Stevie Johnson online, it's quite interesting.
Steve Smith chiming in this week.
So the Bills, from a personnel perspective, offensively versus what the Chiefs have to offer offensively, it's not what the Chiefs have. The Chiefs got Rashee Rice back a couple weeks ago. Xavier Worthy's there. They've got Kelsey still. Juju's there. I mean, they are going to be down Pacheco, but like I don't think that hurts them too much. Whereas the Bills are really hurting offensively outside of James Cook, maybe in Khalil Shakir. So you would expect that the Bills would want to lean a bit more on a ball control style game today.
And Byron Breland 1484 comes in too, and he says Chiefs lead in time possession, ball control offense. I don't disagree that they're not ball control offense, but they go through it in a much different way. They use their wide receivers as an extension of the run game. They're very much methodical about their approach, but they're throwing a lot more than the Buffalo Bills are throwing, and they're running a lot less than the Buffalo Bills are running. So it's those two different distinct styles. They go about it a different way, but the Chiefs are very effective in the way they did it. And obviously we know that they have some of those big play guys who can get downfield and separate down the field in Brown and Thornton and Worthy, et cetera. So as much as they have the ability to go vertical, they're really good at going horizontal as well. And they use that passing game as an extension of the run game. So agree with you 100%. Like they do control possessions as well. They go about it a different way. And I think they have much more personnel in their offense to hit explosives. And I think they feel more. I think if you're going into this game, right, and I told you it's a 7 possession game, I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe there was a turnover here, a turnover there. The Buffalo Bills are still in this thing. If you tell me there's 12 possessions, there's a lot less room for error for the Buffalo Bills, because I think the Chiefs are going to have the ability. I think they match up well, at least in this game, while some guys are out for the Buffalo Bills defensively, or some guys are still getting their feet wet in Hairston and Hancock. I think the Chiefs have a huge personnel advantage today. Their offense versus our defense, despite how well our defense played last week. So I think if you're the Buffalo Bills, your hope is 7, 8, 9 possession game compared to, the track meet that would be an 11, 12 possession game. Speaking of injuries, because someone else came in and was talking about injuries as well. Seems like they figure it out, comes in and says the injuries ruined 2 years ago for the Buffalo Bills. What year does injuries not ruin it for the Buffalo Bills? And that leads us to our first real segment today, and that is the injuries and the weather, taking a look at this week's game. The broadcast, as always, for the 425 window on CBS with Jim Nance, Tony Romo on the call. How else would you rather want it for Bills Chiefs? It just seems like that is what it always comes down to, what it always is in that national window. The weather, 50s to start the game, drops into the 40s once the sun goes down. It's going to be cloudy. Depending on what weather report you read, some will be like, there could be some rain. There probably won't be rain. Others say so. It'll be decent conditions for Buffalo for November for this game. I don't think weather will be too much of a factory. As for injuries, which I just spoke about, the Chiefs are going to be missing Isaiah Pacheco and Josh Simmons. Trey Smith, who was questionable, will play. Jalen Moore also has an illness, so two of their offensive linemen are struggling a little bit, but I really haven't seen any indications that he won't play. They elevated Clyde Edwards-Helaire and CJ Hansen, a guard, from the practice squad. And then, like I said,
didn't even know they still had Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
They brought him back because I think he was with the Saints or something. He was with someone, and I think they brought him back recently. So I don't know what that says about Elijah Mitchell, who's been on the roster forever and just has not gotten a chance there. It's been all Hunt, it's been all Pacheco, it's been Brashard Smith starting to get worked in. They just really do not want to play.
Mitchell's had some good games against when he was with San Francisco.
Yeah.
So like he can play.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire's had some good games against the Bills too. Yeah. So for the Bills, what a week at practice. I don't know what was going on, but Shaq Thompson, who's been our best coverage linebacker all year, he is out with a practice injury this week. Josh Palmer remains out with his ankle injury. Daquan Jones remains out with his calf injury. And then another late add to the injury report was Taron Johnson with a groin on Friday. I don't think he's going to go, because if you look at the elevations, and you got Dane Jackson and you got Phil Mathis to fill Daquan Jones's role, and then Dane Jackson would probably fill in a secondary role if Taron Johnson, who's my guess now a game time decision, cannot go. So a lot of notes here. The 3 practice injuries, because Matt Prater hurt his calf as well, but he's good to go apparently. That's one talking point from these injuries. The Dane Jackson reaction on social media has ranged from pretty funny, like the meme of Thanos putting in the Infinity Stone, saying we're one Gabe Davis away from having the Infinity Stone, went from like very humorous, which I enjoyed, to like just some of the most toxic BS you'll see online. Like, I can't believe, what year is it? Like, because we've already had Phillips and we've already had Poyer, and now he's boundary cornerback 6, people. Like, what do we expect to happen? If Taron Johnson can't go today, it is probably going to be Cam Lewis in the slot, with Jamarcus Ingram sliding from the boundary to the slot to be his backup. And you're probably going to have Dane Jackson being a special teamer and the break glass in case of emergency boundary corner and nickel corner. Like, nothing to be mad about with Dane Jackson. The 2 injuries, I think the 3 injuries, if you're Buffalo, are the 3 guys who are already listed out, because this is a team that likes those quick hitters and likes to get horizontal in the Chiefs and use the passing game as an extension of their run game. And Patrick Mahomes has been scrambling at the best rate of his career this year and making plays out of structure. And as odd as it sounds, Shaq Thompson's been your best linebacker this year. He's now out. You have Terrell Bernard coming back from an injury, Matt Milano coming back from an injury, right? Those are our only real 2 guys that I feel comfortable dropping back into coverage. I love Dorian Williams as our base 4-3. I don't like him when he's part of our nickel 4-3. So that's a huge loss for the Buffalo Bills. Your real only vertical threat on this football team in Josh Palmer is not playing. So that's going to make it tougher, because I don't even know how the Chiefs are going to play us. The Chiefs play 2 deep safeties so much. Are they going to switch it up and have 1 high and drop some guys into the box to try to help with the run? Who knows what Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw at you? We'll talk about that later. And then Daquan Jones, like, this is the game where you actually want some penetrators. Like, you don't really mind if you don't really have that one tech in the football game. Like, 1's enough, and you got Deion Walker. And Daquan Jones has slimmed down. He kind of plays that 1 tech, 3 tech tweener. He's played it pretty well this year. He's found that juice again, even though he's an older player. So having this like big bulky guy in Fedarian Mathis, it's like, cool. 3rd and shorts, goal line. You're going to probably see 15, 16 snaps from him just to give guys a breather. So that's a huge loss to the Buffalo Bills IDL rotation. And I like Fedarian Mathis for the role he plays. I just don't think he's capable of doing more, at least right now. Only been a part of this Bills organization for, I don't know, the first couple of weeks of this season here. So some big injuries for the Buffalo Bills, some decently big injuries for the Chiefs. So it'll be really interesting. What are your thoughts on the injury report?
I mean, to me, the biggest one is Josh Palmer. I mean, I guess from a silver lining perspective, you saw him back at practice a bit this week. So I think maybe, depending on what your perspective was, from my perspective, I think that was a bit sooner than I expected him back, to be honest, at practice.
Mhm.
And I never thought he was really going to be realistically going to play in this game. But I do think that it's a good sign that he's getting closer to playing, and the Bills will need that. I do think what this means for the Bills, though, is that, and we're going to get to it right when we start to talk about the Bills offense, I'll save some of that, is that it is going to be a I think the Chiefs are going to be playing very close to the line of scrimmage today and all around the line of scrimmage. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Yep. But I do agree with you. I think like Daquan being out, it's that Kareem Hunt is not necessarily the most efficient running back on a yards per carry basis, but he can do some things. To me, Taron Johnson is the wild card, right? Because if he's out and you have to kind of mix and match now with the slot, like Rice, Worthy, Juju, those guys, Hollywood Brown working horizontally over the middle of the field, what's your answer to that? Like, I think, there was some thought that at some point maybe Jordan Hancock would play a role in the slot, but I think like what he's been doing right now at the safety position, you don't want to move him around either. So that's going to be tough. So the key one to watch, Josh Palmer, obviously already out, and then Taron Johnson, I think on the defensive side, even if he does go, it certainly seems like he would be less than 100%. So that's not great either.
Yeah. And before we get into Buffalo Bills offense versus the Kansas City Chiefs defense here, quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza with 4 convenient locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's Pizza has been serving Buffalo's best pizza since 1980. Whether you're local or across the country, you can enjoy their delicious pizza delivered fresh to your door. Visit picassospizza.net to place your order today. Once again, that is picassospizza.net. All right. Now we are moving on to the Buffalo Bills offense versus the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Some quick hitting information here on the Chiefs defense. Their strengths, they are obviously led by probably the best defensive coordinator in football, a guy who never seemingly gets any looks for head coaching jobs. Lucky for the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. Steve Spagnuolo, the disguise master. He blitzes a lot, 32% this year. They'll blitz from anywhere. I thought there was a really interesting tidbit from Connor McGovern, who did a film room with Eric this week. If you haven't checked it out on the channel, check that out on the channel. It was really good stuff. He noted that what Spagnuolo likes to do is he likes to start blitzing really heavily once a team gets across midfield to try to force that field goal over that touchdown when it's hard to go over the top because there's less yardage, etc. So that's when Steve Spagnuolo likes to bring the pressure. But we also know last year, and even though the Chiefs like to hold things back for the playoffs, that's going to be a notable talking point in this game because I think the Bills are trying to copy that methodology. Last year, that Dalton Kincaid drop, that game clinching play, everyone on the Bills were convinced at exactly what pressure was coming, and Spagnuolo peeled those linebackers back and dropped back into coverage, and it completely threw the Buffalo Bills off. Josh Allen scrambles out, hits Kincaid, but Kincaid is unable to bring down with it. So Steve Spagnuolo, really good at what he does, is sort of the gist of what I'm saying here. They are top 5 in pressure rate, EPA per play, and red zone defense. You have Chris Jones up front. You got Trent McDuffie in the secondary. So a lot going on for the Chiefs there in terms of star game-changing players on that side of the ball. Some of their weaknesses, their play action is their kryptonite. They're the worst in the NFL, allowing 11.2 yards per attempt. Their average versus the run, they are 18th in EPA per rush, and they can kind of be gashed in the sort of like man-based sort of runs, the gap runs, the pin and pull stuff. So maybe last week when you saw more zone runs from the Bills, this week you might see more man gap style runs from the Buffalo Bills. They are trying to fix things, though. They got Leo Chanel. You saw the way they used 3 linebackers against Detroit. Mike Pennell is back this week. He asked for his release from the Bengals, was granted it, and then immediately went to Kansas City, back to his old home. He's a run stuffer, so maybe he makes a difference today because he was signed directly to the average roster. But going heavy might be an advantage for the Buffalo Bills today because while those linebackers, right, they have the ability to play 3 linebackers. Dropping guys like Nick Bolton back into coverage, that's something you can exploit. And Shamari Connor, their nickel back, he has kind of struggled this year as well. So that's kind of like an EPA standpoint and some general just observations by watching them play this year. What are your DVOA insights to this Kansas City Chiefs defense? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses?
Yeah, defensively for the Chiefs, DVOA wise, they're 9th overall. in DVOA defense. They're 9th against the pass, and they're 9th against the rush. So 9s across the board overall against the pass and against the run. When you start to look at the DVOA against the raw stats, they are 9th overall in DVOA, but 4th overall in raw statistics from a yardage allowed perspective. So the DVOA slightly, worse there for them when compared to the raw statistics. 9th, again, like I said, against the run, 11th in raw stats against the run, so pretty close there. And against the pass, they're 9th in DVOA and 3rd against the pass in raw statistics. So the DVOA would tell you that while they're still very good against the pass, when you look at it compared to the raw statistics, there's maybe a little bit of an opening there for the Bills to kind of get a little bit of something going in the passing game. You mentioned against the linebackers, you mentioned against Shamari Connor. The schedule has been kind of a mixed bag for the Chiefs, a mix of really good and really bad opponents. Obviously, they played the Chargers in week 1 and lost. They played the Eagles and the Lions, but they've also played the Giants, the Raiders, the Commanders, and also like a half hobbled Lamar Jackson in that game that he ultimately got injured in. So then you start to dive a little bit deeper into this defense against how they are against certain wide receivers. 11th against wide receiver 1s, 9th against wide receiver 2s, 2nd against slot, 4th against tight ends. But here's where it gets interesting. 21st against running backs as receivers out of the backfield. This is where the Chiefs have struggled a bit. They have allowed some decent games to running backs as receivers. And I think, as I mentioned on X yesterday, James Cook in the last 3 games, 1 target in the passing game, 0 catches for James Cook. He's only got 12 receptions on the year, so he's on pace for a career low since his rookie season. This is an area where I think, yes, the Bills would love to kind of keep that running game humming a bit, but you are going to have some balance. And I do think if the Bills can get James Cook involved in the passing game, there is something to be said there. He has 17 receptions in 5 career games against the Chiefs, which included a game his rookie season, which he really didn't play and had no catches. So if you think about it, it's really 17 catches in 4 games he's really played in. So he's averaging really over 4 receptions per game against this Chiefs team in the games that he really has played in. And we've seen him in games in the past have success against the Chiefs down the seam, even out of the backfield. So to me, from a DVOA perspective, that's where you're going to want to attack this Chiefs defense as like a point of weakness, obviously, along with some of the other things we already talked about.
2 things you mentioned there kind of shocked me a little bit. Number 1 was you said they were number 2 in DVOA in the slot, when every single Chiefs content creator that I have seen, all right, a lot of the film room junkies, the guys who are a lot like Eric and a lot like Ant, and they talk about how much they're disdain for Shamari Connor is in that nickel spot.
He's graded out well, though. If you look at,
so it'll be really interesting to see like what the some of the film people are seeing, what they're breaking down about Shamari Connor's game compared to analytically like DVOA, what goes into creating that formula. So that'll be a nice little interesting thing to sort of keep an eye on over the course of the game. And then the second thing you said was all the times we've targeted James Cook in these Chiefs matchups and his lack of being able to touch the ball this season in the passing game. T Guman 777 comes in and says over under 3.5 catches for the Bills running backs today. EB Bills Rock said 12 says need to involve our running backs for sure. Like, yeah, 100%. And I think that's another talking point. And Nate Geary is the one who started bringing this up a couple of weeks ago and got it into my subconscious. And each week it's coming more and more into the forefront. Last year, you saw the Buffalo Bills handle the Chiefs in the regular season. And then you saw the Kansas City Chiefs come in January and just do things completely different because they had kind of coasted through the regular season, not really revealing much. And then they came and they just took it to the Buffalo Bills in January. Patrick Mahomes had probably his best game of the year. And they were really effective and efficient offensively when they hadn't been for most of the regular season because they were just hiding stuff. They were just getting by. They were just doing what they had to do to survive the regular season and collect those wins. They weren't revealing much. And then they unleashed it in the playoffs. I think Sean McDermott saw that and was like, this is what we need to do too. And I think he's told Joe Brady, like, just do what you need to do. Don't reveal too much. And I think a lot of where the Buffalo Bills found outlets last year, a lot of where the Bills found success last year was getting the balls in the hands of the running backs, not just James Cook, but Ty Johnson as well. How many big game-clinching, game-changing plays did Ty Johnson make over the course of last season that just has not been there at all this year? And could that be a product of defenses taking that away this year? cool. And us just not pivoting, maybe. But I really think the targets aren't even there for any of them. Like, I think this is a concerted effort by the Buffalo Bills to just survive the regular season, and then they can sort of unleash this stuff in the playoffs and take some teams by surprise. You're not the Kansas City Chiefs. You're not. Like, I'm sorry, you don't have the defense, I think, to play that way. You don't have Steve Spagnuolo cooking things up on defense to go play that way and to carry your team. I just don't think that, especially now with the New England Patriots playing a lot better, you can just go and you can hide everything. Like, whatever you got it. You got to use it. And then when you get to the playoffs, you got to figure something out, because I'm sorry, you are just not the Kansas City Chiefs. You are not there. You need to go out there and just play Buffalo Bills football and stop trying to mimic, I think, what some other teams are doing. So that being said, what is the Buffalo Bills plan of attack going to be today? I think it's going to be to run the rock early. I think it's going to be to try to establish James Cook. I think it's going to try to get the Chiefs into 3 linebacker personnel as much as they can, with Bolton, Tranquil, and Chanel being on the field. I think Chanel is a real wild card for that team, because if you run heavy and you establish the run and you play the run well early in the game, you can run the ball effectively early in the game. You can exploit their passing game by throwing out of heavy, by attacking those 3 linebackers. You can utilize play action and middle of the field throws and really utilize your 2 best offensive weapons in Dalton Kincaid, who wasn't on the injury report at all this week, despite having a huge ice pack on his knee after the game and dealing with that oblique, and Khalil Shakir, who we saw have a big game last week. They really do struggle against play action. Like we said, 11.2 yards per play. They like to play a lot too high. Maybe that changes in this game because of the Bills' offensive personnel. That leaves the middle of the field open to be exploited if you are the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills are top 3 in EPA using play actions. And I think this is the one schematic advantage the Buffalo Bills do have in this game, if they can exploit it, is getting those Chiefs into heavy, attacking out of heavy. So what are your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills plan of attack here?
With the injury to Palmer, and yes, Kincaid not on the injury report this week, I really hope we see a lot of 12 personnel out of the Bills in this game. I want to see Knox and Kincaid on the field at the same time. I want to see Cook in the backfield. I want to see, it's probably going to be Coleman and Shakir, right? I think 12 personnel makes a lot of sense, especially early in the game, and see how that works for you. Play action off of 12 personnel. Get Knox even involved in the passing game if you can a little bit, but like, the Bills are really hurting, so I think they really need to take an assessment of what they have personnel wise and to their advantage. It's like, okay, we have 2 healthy tight ends in Kincaid and Knox, assuming Kincaid is fully healthy. He wasn't on the injury report. We've got Khalil Shakir, we've got James Cook, we've got Jackson Hawes, who we can mix in as well to rotate in if we want to run some 12 personnel a ton today. I think Reggie Gilliam. I think
21, yeah.
21. Yeah, 21's an option as well. So, I do think that's something where the Bills probably could take advantage. But I think the thing is, you have to commit to it, right? And so my worry is not that they can maybe have a little bit of success there. My worry is that if they don't have immediate success early on, that they go away from it, and it becomes one of those situations where then it's like Josh Allen has to manufacture things, that maybe aren't there because of the personnel limitations the Bills have. So it's going to be interesting to me to see how committed Joe Brady is to some of these things. But I do think that it would really go a long way is if they can have some success early with James Cook on the ground. I think that's going to help from a commitment standpoint later on in the game. But 12 personnel, maybe even a little 21 personnel, like you said, I think makes sense for this team.
And they have to have answers for Steve Spagnuolo's blitzes in this game. I actually do think, as much as fans don't like it and the way we go to the well too much, I think the Bills could have success with some quick game screens to guys like Shakir, et cetera, like they have been doing in the past couple of weeks with the rate at which Steve Spagnuolo blitzes. But at the same time, the Chiefs know that's going to be coming, and I'm sure they'll have some answers for that. But we saw Josh Allen get what's what I'm looking for? Sped up, right, and rattled by Atlanta's pressure before the bye week. Carolina Panthers weren't really able to match that coming out of the bye week. But Josh Allen's overall metrics against the blitz are still really, really good. 106.5 passer rating, 7th in EPA per dropback. But Steve Spagnuolo is known for those exotic blitzes. Are they going to take those quick hitters to Shakir away? And if they do, right, how the Bills handle that could really be the defining factor in this game. And to me, this game screams, as you mentioned, when you're talking about DVOA, 21st against the running backs, it's time to get those running backs involved in the passing game, especially with the way the Chiefs like to blitz.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are going to do the same thing with Hunt and with Brashard Smith. Like the Bills have to kind of find something here. And like you said before, they don't have the luxury to hide everything, right? Maybe you want to save some things, okay, but you don't really have the luxury if you're the Bills offense to come into this game and say, hey, we're not going to show anything because we want to save it for the playoffs. Like, you got to make it to the playoffs first, and you got to, like, part of this too is like gaining some momentum and gaining some confidence heading into the second half of the season. Whether or not you win or lose this game, if you can come out and like establish some things on offense, get into a bit of a rhythm, have some success offensively, maybe in the passing game that you haven't had in the past couple weeks, like, win or lose, that's going to kind of maybe carry you into the second part of the season. So I don't think you have the luxury to kind of hide things or hold as much back as, and you could say like the Kansas City Chiefs don't have the luxury because they are staring at the Denver Broncos ahead of them in the division as well. But like, they're playing with a different level of confidence, I think, in their passing game than the Bills are right now. Yeah.
So. Yeah, they are humming. And that's the last point of emphasis I have for our offense today. It is stay clean, limit your false starts, limit your illegal formations, avoid turnovers. The Chiefs have only turned the ball over 4 times this year. So this is going to be one of those complimentary football games that Sean McDermott talks about. As much as Bills fans roll their eyes, like, Sean McDermott's game plan of like trying to limit possessions, trying to run the heck out of James Cook. If the Bills game plan truly is just go heavy, try to absolutely pound them in the run game and just throw play action stuff and screens, it might work. Like, I'm telling you right now, that might actually be our best plan of attack with Josh Palmer out. Like, this team needs to make a trade for a wide receiver at the deadline. They need another boundary separator. Maybe Gabe Davis could be that, but they got to find a way to get Keon Coleman off the field. He cannot be your leading snap counter at wide receiver. He can't be the guy who spends the majority of the time on the boundaries, because anytime we play teams, right, that have good corners, the conversation can't be, well, the Bills got to attack the middle of the field all game. Like, they got to have options on the boundary. And if Josh Palmer is your only one, like, you need more. So in this game plan, it might actually work for the Buffalo Bills. Finish drives. We need to be effective in the red zone. The Chiefs are one of the most effective teams offensively in the red zone this year. So we'll talk about that when we get to the defensive side of the ball. You got to stop them and slow them down in the red zone. Fewer possessions, more touchdowns than field goals, limit turnovers, limit penalties. You're going to have to play a safe-ish ball game today against these Kansas City Chiefs, and you are going to have to play very, very, very complimentary football. Field position is going to be a huge factor in this game, and I think the Chiefs have an advantage there as well. So it's going to be really interesting. When we get to the defensive side, we're going to need a turnover, I think, in this game. We're going to need one. So, but that's the last I really have for the Bills offense, is going to have to play when I say safe, I don't mean like kick field goals. I still think you need to be aggressive on 4th down, but I mean, you got to be mindful of those penalties. You got to be mindful of those turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, the Bills have like worked their way back up into being a top 10 turnover differential team, thanks to last week's game against the Panthers. But yeah, you can't be giving easy ones away to this Chiefs defense that's been, we'll talk about it in a second, top 6 in the NFL in turnover differential this year.
All right. Let's transition now to the Buffalo Bills defense against this red-hot Kansas City Chiefs offense. When you look at the strengths of this Chief offense, it really starts with Patrick Mahomes. He's back to playing like MVP football in the regular season, whereas the last couple of seasons, it's really been MVP level football play in the playoffs and kind of like shaky in the regular season. So Mahomes is back, plus 2.6 EPA per drop back. He has had the best scrambling production of his career this year, getting out of the pocket and running the ball and even making plays out of structure, as Mahomes loves to do. He's got a really deep supporting cast, so much so that they felt the need to steal the Bills' mantra of everybody eats. They've got 9 players this year with 17 plus targets. I think Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce can absolutely eat you up and find space against zone, especially work in the middle of the field. And then you've got Hollywood Brown, you've got Xavier Worthy, you've got Tyquan Thornton, who all have both vertical and horizontal man-beating speed. So the Chiefs really have it all. They are top 3 in time of possession, 3rd down offense, and red zone efficiency. They've only turned the ball over 4 times all season, no fumbles at all. So they are really good at ball security. This team is just really, really good with what they do and what Andy Reid cooks up in a week in and week out basis. But they do have some weaknesses. especially with Josh Simmons, who was playing really well to start the year, out for personal reasons. I think Jalen Moore is beatable. If the referees don't allow Jawan Taylor to start pretty much standing next to Patrick Mahomes,
Which they
has
will.
been
We know they will.
inconsistent. I swear, if I was Sean McDermott, like I swear to you, I'd be standing next to the referee. I'd pull him over to the line of scrimmage, and I'd be watching every play with him. And I would just be micromanaging that official on the sidelines the entire game, and asking him after every play, how is that not a false start? How is that not like lining up I would ask him every single time. I would hammer it home. I would hire a guy to go follow the official around and ask him questions. What's John Perry doing? Let's get John Perry on the sidelines for this game.
He's clearly not doing much of his job otherwise. So.
But I think the tackles are beatable, which is really good because I love our edge rushers, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Their run game is less explosive, obviously, without Pacheco playing. Kareem Hunt, not the most explosive guy in the world, but he makes plays for them. They've been trying to work Rashad Smith in. They've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe Elijah Mitchell to add to the rotation. Who knows what they're going to do today with Pacheco out. They've been more consistent the last couple of weeks, running between the tackles and sticking with the run. So I think you're going to see a little bit more of an emphasis there that continue for this Chiefs team. They are very yak dependent. Andy Reid does a really good job scheming that stuff up, getting those guys horizontal, creating those dump off situations, screens and drags and things like that. So the Buffalo Bills are going to need to be disciplined tacklers, which is not something we know them to do. So a lot of strengths, a couple of weaknesses. What are your DVOA insights to this Chiefs offense?
Chiefs offense, very good. DVOA wise, they're second overall in DVOA offense, fourth in passing DVOA offense, sixth in rushing DVOA offense. Oh, by the way, overall, they're fifth, and they're one of only 5 teams in the top 10 in both offense and defensive DVOA. The other 4 are the Rams, Lions, Seahawks, and Packers. So elite company there for the Kansas City Chiefs. They are 14th. They are 4th in DVOA passing offense against the Bills' 14th ranked passing DVOA defense, and they're 6th in rushing DVOA offense against the Bills' 30th ranked DVOA rushing defense. And the Kansas City Chiefs have averaged 150 rushing yards on the game in a game the last 2 weeks. They've only been under 100 rushing yards once this season. That was all the way back in week 1, where they only ran the ball for 98 yards against the Chargers, but they've been over 100 rushing yards in every game otherwise in this season. Like you said, they've only turned the ball over 4 times so far this year, but 2 of those turnovers were in the last game against the Commanders. But this is an offense that is really humming, ranks very well. You would expect that the Bills' defensive front and rushing defense may be tested a little bit less today without Isaiah Pacheco. But like you said, Kareem Hunt, he will get yards after contact. He will get everything that's in front of him. He might not break a huge run, but he's going to get that extra yard or 2. So the Bills' defensive front without Daquan, without Ed Oliver, are going to be tested with that 30th ranked rushing DVOA defense. And again, like you said, you talked about Patrick Mahomes, 4th in passing DVOA. He's got 7 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions on the year. Been sacked 14 times, and Kelsey leads the team in receptions with 37. So he certainly looks like he's back to being that force after like somewhat of an interesting year last year. Kareem Hunt has averaged 6.4 yards per attempt and 4.3 yards per attempt in his last 2 games against the Bills on 19 attempts. He's probably going to be, I would imagine, in that sort of low double digits attempts on the ground as well again today. So look, DVOA wise, the Bills don't match up great against this team. The one saving grace maybe is that Isaiah Pacheco is out, and maybe the Bills can kind of cobble together a bit of a rushing defense today against Kareem Hunt and against Rashad Smith. But really the issue, I think, for the Bills in defending those running backs is going to be how they do out of the backfield. And to their credit, the Buffalo Bills, if you can believe it, are actually 4th in DVOA against running backs out of the backfield. So may seem like the Bills aren't great against running backs out of the backfield.
Bijan didn't put too much of a dent into that.
Yeah. So they've actually been pretty decent there from a DVOA perspective. So again, it worries me a little bit because Rashad Smith's been really efficient with the targets he's gotten so far, and people in the Kansas City community have been kind of clamoring for him to get more looks. He kind of took a back seat last week in the Commanders game, but you wonder if he's going to take a more prominent role today for the Chiefs with Pacheco out.
Yeah. We got Carl Sheffers on the call today, and someone mentioned that in the comment section. Kyle Bills comes in, says Chiefs fans already complaining about Carl Sheffers. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to get on over to Warren Sharp's site this week and look at the referee sort of breakdown. There's another social media handle, NFL Ref Stats, that I love, but they haven't posted all week. But if you do a quick search of Carl Sheffers on Twitter, it is there are multiple Chiefs accounts that throw like a little party every week when Carl Sheffers is not calling a Chiefs game. That Chiefs fans do not like Carl Sheffers at all. The one statistic I have found about him is they're averaging this year 2 offensive holding and 2 false start penalties a game. Historically, his crews average 3 a game. So who knows? Maybe they'll be paying a little bit more closer attention to Jawan Taylor than other officiating crews definitely do. So the Bills have had success. I don't know the record off the top of my head with Carl Sheffers calling games or with Carl Sheffers and then the Chiefs, but I know Chiefs fans do not like Carl Sheffers, but this probably rules him out for the inevitable matchup in January between the Bills and the Chiefs. So that's unfortunate, but that's just the very little insight I have on Carl Sheffers for this game. Sorry. Not a lot of notes heavy on the officiating this week, but if you look at the defensive blueprint for the Buffalo Bills, let's start with the defensive line, because this is the most confident I've been in an edge rush group since we first signed Von Miller in like the first 4 weeks of that season, like that Rams game and all that stuff. I am very confident in this rotation of Groot, Bosa, Epinesa, and Michael Hoyt. They can apply heat on offensive tackles. They can bull rush you. They got strength. And I really do think that is something the Buffalo Bills have been lacking in their pass rush. And when you disrupt Mahomes' rhythm, it's a factor. When clean, he's completed 74 of his passes. When pressured, he's only completed 47% of his passes. But the issue I do have with this defensive line this week is, number one, you can't overcommit. Like we've seen Joey Bosa just make some absolute knuckleheaded plays when against RPOs and things of that nature. And you're going to see a lot of that with the Kansas City Chiefs, the fake handoffs, the quick hitters, the misdirection. How's Joey Bosa and his sort of caveman brain going to be able to handle those types of situations? That's my number one concern. My number two concern is you got to generate pressure up the middle because those edge rushers, they got to contain. You can't let Mahomes get out of structure. You can't let do all those things that the Chiefs like to do, going horizontal. So it's going to be a very linear week for, I think, the edge rushers. There's not a lot of discretion that they're going to have in their rush lanes. So you got to find a way to pressure up the middle, and you don't have Ed Oliver. Like that sucks. That really sucks if you're the Buffalo Bills. So they must generate an interior pass rush without sacrificing their contain on the edge. So simulated pressures, getting Michael Hoyt to hug the A gap, utilizing Dorian Williams, maybe when you're in those base 4-3 situations, drop an AJ Epinesa into coverage and or Michael Hoyt into coverage, right? And bring Dorian Williams up the middle. That could be something the Buffalo Bills consider. Obviously, Bernard has had success in the past in some of those A gap blitzes. Cole Bishop, I think, has had some success blitzing this year. Jordan Poyer historically has had some success blitzing the quarterback. So the Buffalo Bills are going to have some simulated pressures this week. Find a way to get Mahomes uncomfortable up the middle of the pocket and get some pressures that way as well. So the defensive line, I am so confident in those edge rushers, but really getting pressure up the middle this week is going to be huge. And there's concern there for me with the personnel we have with no Ed Oliver.
There's concern I have from a defensive line perspective, but I do think that there might be opportunities to kind of move Hoyt around, have him kind of maybe some stunts, maybe him going up the middle. Bernard, you mentioned, I think Milano even at times maybe. So like personnel wise, like you have to look at this if you're the Bills and say, okay, Cole Bishop, he can be used as a blitzer. Terrell Bernard certainly has had success there. Even Milano at times, like there are options for the Bills maybe with their linebackers to be a bit more use those guys a bit more from a pressure standpoint. But the thing, like you said, that concerns me is I feel like you almost have to defend this from the edges as if it was Lamar Jackson, in the sense that like if you go too far upfield against Mahomes on your pass rush, like, and you let him step up and around that pass rush and you're too far deep upfield in the backfield, he's just going to step through it and run, and he's going to be able to have space. He's been the best scrambling quarterback in the league this year. So if you're the Bills, I think for Bosa, for Epinesa, for Groot. Like when you're rushing, you have to keep Mahomes in front of you and not be so quick to go around and deep and wide around the edge and let him step up and around, because to me, that's where he is going to be absolutely deadly. And it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen at some points in this game, but you really need to limit that. And you really need to stay disciplined in keeping him in front of you. And what that means is, yes, you may not necessarily get to him right away, but you can force him horizontally out instead of allowing him to run up and through the pocket and scramble. So to me, that's going to be a key for that Bills defensive line, because as you mentioned, and as we've seen all year, the Bosa at times has been pretty undisciplined. I actually trust AJ Epinesa maybe the most in this scenario to be a bit more disciplined, and Groot as well. But Bosa is going to be big in this one too.
Kudos to AJ Epinesa too, by the way, because we talked in training camp like, oh, Landon Jackson, Javon Solomon, some new young exciting players. Michael Hoyt coming back week 8. Is AJ Epinesa expendable? And now he's probably one of the most important players on our defense this year. So kudos to AJ Epinesa, and I think it's time to start talking contract extension with AJ.
Yeah, another one.
As well.
He got one. He could get another.
Yeah. So it took a while, but that draft pick for the Buffalo Bills is starting to really pay off. The back seven is what has me really concerned, even though there was a lot of signs of improvement last week. You also have to remember, like, it's a lot easier when you're playing a statue quarterback who's like 40
Carolina
years
Panthers,
old,
who only have like one real threat.
And Andy Dalton. So totally different offenses here. Like those big bulky receivers that you saw last week to these kind of like speed demons that you're going to see this week. So to me, like, number one, the spy discipline. Mahomes is having one of the best years of his career scrambling. The Bills have struggled against scrambling quarterbacks this year. They've been gashed on QB runs all year long. Spencer Rattler and his scrambling, he won that game, still haunts my dreams, right? Drake May, obviously Lamar Jackson. Can Bernard, Milano, and Dorian Williams, they have a lot of experience doing it, but can they mirror Mahomes on his scrambles? When he gets out of structure, can they stop him from making those out of structure plays? Obviously, you're not going to stop him completely, but just limit his ability to make those explosive plays and to keep drives alive when he gets out of structure. That's going to be huge. The Bills linebackers are rusty. To me, that's a concern. The linebackers are my biggest concern. Like, could Bernard and Milano get back to just being who they were this week and catch that lightning in a bottle? Maybe, but could Terrell Bernard still be feeling lingering effects of that ankle injury? Matt Milano, is he going to be as aggressive and his same old self now with 2 pec injuries that have sidelined him for most of the season? Both those guys are rusty. They've missed time. Obviously, Milano more so than Bernard, but like a lot of questions in the linebacking core. And man, I would feel a lot more safer if we had Shaq Thompson to fall back on.
Well, and it's a tough test for them coming back, right? Obviously, Bernard was active last week, didn't play because of the injury. Milano now coming back for his first action in weeks. And so, yeah, talk about getting thrown into the fire. You're not going against the Carolina Panthers this week to kind of ease back in. You're going against maybe your toughest test defensively against an offense that's absolutely humming. So in my mind, I'd like to think that Milano could play that role of spy or of limitation to what Mahomes can do out of structure, out of the pocket. But are the instincts, like the physical and the mental, are they going to be kind of lined up here for this first game back? Bernard's been practicing, so I guess in that sense that's good. Like, he was active last week, although he didn't play, but hopefully between the two of them, they can cobble something together to where they can manage this situation. It does suck that Shaq Thompson's out because he's been playing really well, but Bernard is a captain. They gave him the extension. Like, you paid him big money if you're Brandon Beane. And so there's pressure, I think, on Terrell Bernard to perform today because he's the one that got that big contract and he is the captain. And I mean, less so pressure, I think, on Milano because we know this is the last year in his deal and he's kind of had his injury pass. So I think there's less pressure on him, but I do think there's some pressure on Terrell Bernard today to have a good game. Yeah.
And then you look at the secondary. My biggest fear going into this game, and I hate to paint this ugly picture, but this is the ugly picture I'm going to paint. Like, this is what kept me up last night thinking about this game today, is that with all those vertical athletes that the Chiefs have in their wide receiver room with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy and Tyquan Thornton, they have the ability to get the ball down the field if they want to. I have a feeling like the Buffalo Bills are going to just drop back into these 2 high shells to prevent those explosives. They're going to try to keep everything in front of them. And Mahomes is going to be able to, if you can't get pressure with 4 guys, right? He's going to be able to dink and dunk that ball down the field, find those holes in the zone. The Chiefs are going to be able to dominate time of possession, finish in the red zone, right? If the Bills' game plan is to drop 2 safeties and, gang tackle and swarm tackle and keep everything in front of them and just limit those explosives, the Bills, we've seen the Bills, again, better last week, but we've seen the Bills struggle to wrap up while trying to keep things in front of them. And we've seen them really hurt this football team this year. And if they do that, Rice and Kelsey, they're going to gash you up in those zone defenses. They're going to get you overthinking. They're going to get guys miscommunicating. They're going to find those holes. Even guys like Juju Smith and Noah Gray can pick you apart over the middle of the field. They can even get some of those speedier guys, on those quick hitters that there's not a lot of, jamming at the line. They can make some plays with them as well. So if you're the Bills, one of the keys this game, especially if you drop into those too high shells, is going to be swarm tackling, which again, not a strength of the Buffalo Bills this season. Their tackle rates, not great, Bob. And then, so to me, the answer is continue those man looks, especially on third down. I want to see Maxwell Hairston and I want to see Jordan Hancock continue to get more and more reps every single week. I think the Buffalo Bills need that juice in the secondary. I really am concerned if those two are not inserted into the lineup and playing regularly, there's just not the juice there to keep up with teams with the skill position weapons that the Kansas City Chiefs have. So you got to get those 2 younger guys into this game. I know it's only the second week of regular snaps for both of them, and one was coming off an injury, but I don't care. If you're the Buffalo Bills, you got to do it.
If you're fishing for answers and hope and things of that nature on the offensive side of the ball, obviously it's been try to get a wide receiver at the trade deadline. If you're fishing for answers and hope on the defensive side of the ball in the absence of Ed Oliver and some of these things, it's got to be looking at Max Hairston and Jordan Hancock as young, athletic, higher ceiling type players that did get good reps in last week against the Carolina Panthers. And again, you drafted Max Hairston to be able to run in space with guys like Worthy, right? This is why you drafted a guy like that. And Hancock's a guy that I think has some ability to kind of be the last line of defense in a way that maybe Taylor Rapp couldn't be with that injury that he had. And we saw him make the nice tackle on Dowdle last week on a drive that ultimately led to a Panthers turnover. So you are 100% right there. That's got to be a beacon of kind of hope for this Bills defense is Hairston and Hancock. I think that if you sit back in sort of 2 deep zone, cover 2 deep zone, and Rice and Kelsey are going to eat you alive over the middle of the field, I think. And, and I could see that being a point of frustration today for the Bills defense. The Kansas City Chiefs are the 6th best third down offense in the NFL, 44%. And the Bills are the 10th worst third down defense in the NFL. So if you take a conservative approach on defense in those deep zones to limit big plays, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to say please and thank you and take it all the way down the field and convert a ton of third downs, and we're just going to get frustrated the entire day.
And who knows? Maybe that's an overreaction on my part because we saw Bobby Babich get his soft benching last week, and it really does look like McDermott is calling plays. I said soft benching in hopes that Aaron Quinn is maybe watching right now because I know he muted that word on Twitter. But a great comment here from James Sinclair 4585, and I told you we were going to come back to this game, that Lions Chiefs game, and I know the Chiefs ended up winning that game, and the Lions just didn't have it there in the second half, but that whole game, the entire talking point of the game was the Chiefs were playing 3 linebackers the whole game, and the Lions were playing 3 linebackers the whole game. It was a throwback. It looked like 90s football out there with both teams in base for a majority of the game. So James Sinclair comes in and says, will 42 be the spy today? If Taron Johnson can't go and it's Cam Lewis in the slot, I think there's a chance where Dorian Williams could outsnap Cam Lewis, and the Buffalo Bills will just use nickel on those obvious passing situations, and they will try to utilize Dorian Williams to try to spy Patrick Mahomes and do those things that they need to be done. So the Lions came out with that approach. It worked for them a little bit. It didn't work for them in some other regards. They got some bad calls, I think, in that game, and some things went awry for them a little bit in the second half, kind of got away from them. But I think if you're the Buffalo Bills, I think you could see a guy like Dorian Williams out snap or out rep Cam Lewis in that game. Some quick notes on special teams, Dave. I don't know if you have any special teams DVOA on the Chiefs, but I can tell you this. I can tell you this. Harrison Butker, obviously he's missed a couple of field goals this year that have been notable, but he's still 12 for 15 with a long of 59, 22 of 25 on extra points. So he's missed 3 XPs this year. Matt ARH has been solid for them, and this speaks to the field position and the complementary football they play. He's had 19 punts this year. He's averaged 44.3 yards per punt, no touchbacks for Matt ARH and that big leg of his. 11 punts inside the 20. The Bills, we've been talking about field position, those invisible yards. They've been punting a lot, like backed up in their own, area, backed up against their own goal line. And other teams have been starting with field position around the 50-yard line. The Chiefs, in this new age of the NFL, where everyone else has seemed to figure out the kickoff rule and all that stuff, they're not punting backed up against their own goal line. And Matt ARH's statistics there are a sign of how good they are at playing complementary football, having that advantage in why am I blanking on something I talk about every week? Field position. There we go.
Kansas City 22nd in DVOA special teams, Bills 21st. So
wow. So it's an even there. If you're looking at the box score statistics, which is what I did, they look pretty solid. But I will trust that maybe they're just an average team there this year. Their returners are Rashard Smith and Nico Remigio, and they have some juice. Like, have they popped a lot of big plays? Remigio has 1 or 2 here. I haven't seen any really Rashard Smith big ones, but they've got a little bit of juice, especially more so compared to the Buffalo Bills, who seemingly don't have any in the return game right now. So that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye out for as we watch this game here this evening. I shouldn't say evening, late afternoon. There we go. The late afternoon window is what they call it. All right. So now that we've talked a little offense, we talked a little defense, it's time to get into our pre-game superlatives. As always, we like to close out the show every week with our pre-game superlatives, have a little bit of fun, make some predictions. And as always, we start with our Take Me Higher player of the game. And as we do that, a great comment here from Yost Woody 84444, because in the Chiefs games that I have watched this year, I have noticed this. The Chiefs have had some big plays in their return game this year, and it seems like every time they have a big play, someone's getting a penalty. Like the Jaguars game, it happened. I think the Lions game, it happened a few times. So the Chiefs
watch it not happen today.
Yeah, the Chiefs games that I have watched this year, that's why I'm like, I feel like Remigio's hit some big ones, and I was like, oh no, every time I watch, he's getting called back. So
yeah.
Let's start with our pregame superlatives here. The first one, as always, is our Take Me Higher player of the game. This is a player not named Josh Allen who needs to step up, or we think will step up for the Buffalo Bills to have success today. Dave, who is your Take Me Higher player of the game?
I'm going to the well again on this. I think for me, it has to be James Cook. I think he is the MVP of the Bills right now. He is leading the NFL in yards per game, rushing yards per game, by the way. So he is averaging more rushing yards per game than Jonathan Taylor at 107.6. He's averaging 6 yards per carry, which leads the NFL as well for qualifying running backs. So we mentioned him as kind of the guy to kind of establish the offense for the Bills, but also I want to see James Cook get involved more in the passing game this week as well, after he has had 0 catches and only 1 target in the last 3 games. So for me, this is James Cook. He has to be the guy today.
Yeah. Again, I always like to switch it up with you, and I knew you were going to go James Cook, but I don't even care. Like, I'm doubling down. I think this is the second time this year we've doubled down on our Take Me Higher player of the game. Kansas City's soft spot is the running game. Plus, you want to get that play action synergy. I know, like, the data says, well, it doesn't really matter. You do play action whether your team runs the ball well or it doesn't. But if your team's run the ball well, it can't hurt your play action game, right? So to me, have that play action synergy. Keep feeding the ball to James Cook. I would like to see him get 25 touches in this game. I think that it is going to really help the Buffalo Bills open up things over the middle of the field for Kincaid and Shakir. And it's the week to open up the playbook. When I say 25 touches for James Cook, I don't mean has to have 25 carries in this game. Get him some targets in the passing game, especially as an answer to some of those big Steve Spagnuolo blitzes. Don't just rely on those quick hitters to Khalil Shakir. Find some other answers for that pressure, because you know Steve Spagnuolo is going to bring it unless he decides to do his voodoo magic and just drop everybody all game, right? So to me, a Cook-driven offense will help you on third downs, will help you stay in front of the sticks, and it's going to keep Patrick Mahomes on the bench, right? If you can matriculate the ball down the field and go on these long drives and limit possessions, you're going to keep Patrick Mahomes on the bench. And to me, that is the biggest thing for James Cook and what makes him the biggest asset to me in this game. And that's why I'm going to double down with you and give James Cook my take me higher player of the game recommendation as well. All right. Now we are on to our wild card player of the game. All right, our wild card player of the game. This is a surprise player, an under the radar player who we think needs to or will step up in order for the Buffalo Bills to have success against the Kansas City Chiefs. Dave, who is your wild card player of the game?
Yeah, I don't know if this qualifies, but I'm going to go for it anyway. First game back last week after suspension, Michael Hoyt had a really good game against the Panthers. He's not a starter, obviously, so I'll kind of give myself this as a wild card type player.
Because he might not be one for very long.
He might not be one, but good game against the Panthers this week, mixed in on some inside rushes as well. So I think Michael Hoyt could be maybe a potential answer on some of those inside pressures that we want to see on Patrick Mahomes today. The Bills will move him around. That was one of the things that was as advertised with Michael Hoyt as a signing, was his ability to move around the defensive line in his first game back last week. A good way to get back into the swing of things. So I do think Michael Hoyt today will be a wild card and potentially having a sack or making some kind of disruptive play on Patrick Mahomes. And the Bills are going to need it. So I'll go Michael Hoyt.
Got some people coming in the comment section. James Sinclair, he says, it'll be dark by 5 p.m. today. Take me higher, Jackson Hawes, 4 catches and a touchdown reception. To me, that'd be more a wild card, but I'll give it to you, James. Ralph Wilson Sr. comes in and says, Hairston, he was drafted for this. Definitely trying to follow those guys on those horizontal routes and not have to use linebackers and drop linebackers or bring safeties up. If Hairston can stick with guys as they are running horizontal on those crossers and those drags and things, that'll be a real help for the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, anything could be better than Kyrie Elam in those situations, falling down on his own face in playoff games. Charles G comes in and says, Shakir's going to eat today. I feel it. Tegumen 777 says, just for the hell of it, wild card player of the game, Elijah Moore. And Pops Mafia comes in. Offensive lineman always going under the radar, says Connor McGovern stopping Chris Jones. That'll be big, and they'll be moving Chris Jones around a lot. So it's going to be a team effort there along the offensive line. My wild card player of the game, I'm cheating this week. I don't think I've cheated all year, so I'm cheating this week. I'm going with 2 guys. I'm going with Maxwell Hairston and Jordan Hancock because it's kind of a themed wild card player of the game. I almost went with Dawson Knox or Jackson Hawes because I think the tight ends could be a factor this week. But I wanted to mix it up offense, defense. So I'm going to go with Hairston and Hancock because it's the same theme. And that's the Chiefs feast on off coverage. They are so good at finding those holes in the zone. So the Bills need, I think, more man looks today, like last week, especially on third down. Hairston, he's got that speed and mirror ability that will let you maybe drop some safeties back, not feel the need to bring them up. You have Jordan Hancock, who I think can play center field and help you with some of these guys who are going to try to go vertical. We saw him coming up from depth and made a good tackle last week on Rico Dowdle. So that's going to be huge, having your safeties be able to come up from depth and tackle. So I think Jordan Hancock can help you there as well. So Hairston's speed to carry routes. It's going to help free people up, I think, to cover Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice. Having Jordan Hancock back there, I think he has ability to come from depth and drop back. So get the youth, get the speed, get that involved in the game. And that's why my wild card player of the game is going to be Maxwell Hairston and Jordan Hancock.
I like that. And it's also giving them good reps now against a tough team for hopefully benefit down the road.
All right. Up next. And thank you to, thank you here for the Tegu. It's a Colombian lizard back in the day. Used to raise them. Thank you. I've been struggling with that one all day. So thank you, Tegu, for that. All right. So Pops Mafia comes in last second here, says Reggie Gilliam clearing the way for James Cook, man. We should have talked about Reggie Gilliam way earlier in the show. He's having himself a season. He's another guy like AJ Epinesa, who I think is an in-season extension candidate. Get that man locked up. Make him a Buffalo Bill for life, especially at that fullback position. They always seem to age very well. Larry Center, Sam Gash, Damian Shelton, all these fullbacks who deserve our respect here. Speaking of respect, our next superlative here is I respect you, player of the game. All right. Every week we got to pick one player, and this has been my weakness over the course of the years we've done this show. But I've been good this year. I've only picked one player, and I've only picked one player. Well, I picked two players this week, but only because I feel like you're going to steal one of them. But this is a player. We're gonna discontinue Patrick Mahomes from this conversation. This is a player that the Buffalo Bills need to be mindful of if they want to beat the Kansas City Chiefs today. That's not Patrick Mahomes. Who is your respect you player of the game?
Respect you player of the game for me is a guy who's back in the mix now for the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 games now back, 19 targets in his 2 games back. There was no easing him back in at all,
No.
and that is Rashee Rice. I think especially, I mean, yes, you can go Kelsey, we can go that. What to me, it's Rashee Rice. If Taron Johnson's a little dinged up, if the Bills are gonna struggle on third down, Rashee Rice is a third down conversion machine along with Kelsey. But I'm going to go with Rice again, 19 targets in 2 games back. He makes a difference for this team in moving the ball down the field. He's a threat in the red zone. They've even worked him in a little bit on some running plays as well. And he certainly looks like he's ready to just kind of have a great second half of the season. So for me, I'm going to go with Rashee Rice because obviously we're kind of giving the Josh Allen treatment to Patrick Mahomes in this segment.
Yeah, no, I had some terrible jokes. I don't know if I wanted to use them or not, but I'm gonna throw them out there, knowing full well that I could get some pushback. But yeah, Rashee Rice, all gas, no brakes. He's just looking to mow down those defenders when he's out there. So that was one of the guys on my list, and I figured you would go with him. So my backup plan, not difficult to find a backup plan. Chris Jones. Obviously, he's a one-man drive ender. Connor McGovern was talking to Eric Turner earlier this week on the film room again. Go check that out. It's a real good listen. He talked about you can just use Chris Jones anywhere. I mean, he can be an edge rusher. He can play on the IDL. Like, you just got to be able to shift your offensive lineman to know where he is. Like, he just does it all. He's a one-man drive ender. You got to slide protection his way. You got to move the pocket. Maybe the Buffalo Bills, you got to move the pocket a little bit today. Just get Josh Allen on the rolling out away from guys like Chris Jones. You got to utilize the play action to maybe slow him down a little bit. So to me, obviously, it's pretty easy. I mean, you could have thrown Travis Kelsey, Trent McDuffie, a lot of star power on these Kansas City Chiefs teams. And, the guy who should be snapping the ball to Josh Allen right now, and Creed Humphrey, like a whole bunch of star players on this Kansas City Chiefs team that really seem to carry them year in and year out. All right, that brings us now to our there we go, our hot take, our fire sale for this week. All right, as always, every week we like to have a little bit of a fire sale, throw out our hottest take. Dave, what is your hottest take heading into this football game?
I think James Cook 3 touchdowns today for the Buffalo Bills, maybe a mix of receiving and rushing touchdowns, but I think James Cook is going to be the offense for the Bills today, especially as they get down into the red zone. They're going to do a few more creative things with him, and I think he gets involved in the passing game today and potentially has a receiving touchdown. So I think James Cook, 3 total touchdowns today, a mix of rushing and receiving. Don't know how much of each, but I will say there will be at least one of each receiving and rushing touchdown for Cook, but he'll also add another one as well. So 3 total touchdowns for James Cook today.
Well, one of us is going to be right, and one of us, I think, is going to be wrong with our bold predictions today. But if we're both right, it's going to be a good day for the Buffalo Bills, because I think this is the week where, obviously, he was my take me higher player of the game. So I think James Cook is going to be the driver and the engine of everything we have to do on offense in this game. But I think this is the week he's off the injury report. I think this is the week that the Buffalo Bills finally have somebody to take the pressure off of James Cook a little bit, and that's Dalton Kincaid. So my hot take is he goes over 100 yards in this game and has 2 touchdowns.
Wow.
The Chiefs are the worst in the league versus play action and allow 5+ yards of separation per target on those play action attempts, 11.2 yards per play on those play action attempts. You get Dalton Kincaid matched up with Shamari Connor, with Nick Bolton. I think it's a mismatch that he can work with. Obviously, you feel the Buffalo Bills, you want to match the run game success of James Cook and mirror it with the play action rollout to get things like seams wide open for Dalton Kincaid. Bills middle of the field passing game, I think, perfectly aligns to torch those KC 2 deep shells as long as they still run it. Because again, you never know what to expect with a guy like Steve Spagnuolo. So my hot take is this is a big Dalton Kincaid game for the Buffalo Bills. He takes a little bit of pressure off of James Cook. We got Pops Mafia come in and says Hoyt 2.5 sacks. We've got James Sinclair coming in saying Josh gets another angry run award. That'd be 2 in 2 weeks for the Buffalo Bills as James Cook got it this year, or last week, excuse me. So be really interesting to see if and hope right that these
I like this one too.
hot takes coming back. Oh, there we go. And that's might be a little bit of preview of might take me back to the future here, because our last superlative, our game predictions, it's time to go back to the future. All right, Dave, take us back to the future here. Paint a picture for us. What is your game prediction?
James Cook's going to get the 3 touchdowns. I think the Bills will be better on offense in this game, but I think it's going to be tough for the Bills today on defense. They did kind of rebound nicely against the Carolina Panthers. I think there will be pressure applied to Mahomes, but I think he's going to frustrate this Bills defense today with his scrambling. I think there will be times where the Bills do get to him, but I think he's been sacked 14 times this year, but I think he's going to escape some pressures and make some plays off script. And I just don't know if the Bills have enough defensively to slow down Rice, Worthy, Kelsey in this one. I do think Josh Allen has a better game, and I do think that the Bills offense does come out and plays better in this one. But I sadly will be predicting the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game. I'm going to say Chiefs 31, Bills 27, and I hope I'm wrong.
We got Tegu coming in saying KC wins 34-20. Unfortunately, I think on Cover One Buffalo this week, it was a clean sweep for the Chiefs as well, with Greg and Aaron and Ken all picking the Chiefs to win. My actual confidence in this game is probably around 40% in the Buffalo in the sense that I think the Buffalo Bills are going to win this game. But I've said it before, right? At the end of the day, I'm a Bills fan. I'm not picking against the Bills ever when they have Josh Allen at quarterback. Am I going to be perfect? Am I going to hit 100%? No, because the Bills clearly aren't going to go undefeated every season. But my prediction for today, Bills 27, Chiefs 23. I think the Bills can continue to try this, like hide their stuff, be the Chiefs-esque, and get away with it at least this week. Because when you look at it from a matchup perspective, I think you're going to see a heavy dose of James Cook runs. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Khalil Shakir screens. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Dalton Kincaid over the middle of the field. I think that should be enough for the Buffalo Bills to limit possessions if they play smart, if they don't turn it over. I think you're going to see a Josh Allen touchdown toss late in the game to put the Bills up 27-23. And then I think you're going to see a Jordan Hancock game-sealing interception on Mahomes on the final drive. I'm manifesting it now. The Bills score late. The Chiefs get the ball back. Everyone panics because I think Mahomes is going to lead them down for a game-winning touchdown. And the rookie, the legend of Jordan Hancock, seals it with interceptions. That's my
love that.
That's my pregame prediction. Manifesting that now. So hopefully that comes true, because I would love to be able to clip that and put it all over Twitter. And if it doesn't happen, we'll just delete the footage.
Just forget about it.
Delete
Just forget about it. Yeah.
That's all we'll do. No worries. All right, Dave, any closing thoughts before we head out of here this morning? And hey, 425 game. I might actually, if I can get my act together here, get the audio version up for anyone who wants to listen with their ears and not their eyes. Not that you listen with your eyes. Now you know we're getting late in the show and I'm saying things like that. But any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
You can tell it's daylight savings. I got the freaking light here. It's messing up my lighting. Bills have forced a turnover in all but one game. That was the Falcons game. So I think forcing a turnover today will be huge if they do want to win. I did predict them to not win, but I do think if they win the turnover battle, they'll have a good chance.
I mentioned at the top that we were going to mention it again, and I don't think we mentioned it again, but the turnovers are going to be really important in this game. I think whoever wins the turnover battle, the field position battle, the teams that convert in the red zone, the teams that convert on third down, it's the same every week. You got to play complementary football, right? You got to get off field on third down. You got to extend drives on third down. You got to score touchdowns in the red zone, not kick field goals. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, those will be the keys to the game. Obviously, turnovers help in that regard, and field position helps in that regard. Do not forget, Cover One post-game show is live following the game. Hopefully it's a victory celebration for Greg and Aaron. Our next show is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And if you're looking for ways to support this show, share. The number one thing you can do is just smash that like button. That helps a long way with the algorithm. Obviously, clicking the share button at the bottom and texting this or sharing it on social media, that goes a long way. Again, we don't like these catchy clickbait titles. Our title this week is literally Buffalo Bills Kansas City Chiefs Week 9 pregame show. Right? Nothing too crazy about that. Obviously, we try to paint a picture of what it is we're going to be talking about every week on the show, but sometimes the YouTube algorithm doesn't like that. So if you could share, that'd be great. If you could like, that'd be great. And then when we're done yakking it up here and we end the live stream, if you want to come back to this video and leave a comment, that also really helps drive the algorithm as well. And over the course of the afternoon, I like to go on and leave comments to anyone who leaves a comment as well. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Really appreciate you guys. And until next time, Dave, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!